Good evening. Welcome to the April 14th, 2014 Troy City Council meeting. We are pleased this evening to have Pastor Mark Nowak from the First Baptist Church of Troy with us to give the invocation. Please rise for that and then remain standing for the Pledge of Allegiance. Good evening, Pastor.
Good evening. Let's pray. Heavenly Father, we do acknowledge this evening that every good and perfect gift comes from you. Thank you for all the blessings that we have, for the freedoms of this country, for the prosperity that we have, for all the quality of life that still exists here, especially here in Troy. Thank you for the men and women that serve. Think of those in the services. I pray for their protection within and without this country. Thank you for the police officers here in Troy, for EMS, for those that volunteer in the fire department. Lord, we consider them a gift from you. Lord, I pray for wisdom tonight as there are things to be discussed. And Lord, as there's differences of opinion, that we do so in a respectful way, that we listen and hear the other point of view. And Lord, you'd give us wisdom as we would do what would be best for this community. Thank you for the safety that we have here in Troy. Thank you for it's a good place to raise family, and that businesses are coming here and growing. And Lord, I just pray for wisdom as many different factors have to be considered. So I pray for a good meeting tonight, that things would be accomplished, that the city would move forward for what's best for all. And I pray this in Christ's name, amen.
Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Pastor. Troy City Council meeting is now called to order. The roll call, Ms. Bittner.
Mayor Slater?
Here.
Councilmember Campbell?
Here.
Councilmember Fleming?
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Henderson?
Here.
Councilmember Hoderick?
Here.
Councilmember Pennington?
Here.
Councilmember Teets?
Here. All present. Our first order of business is certificates of recognition and special presentations. And C1 this evening is the National Library Week 2014 proclamation. And it says that it will be introduced by Kathy Russ, Library Director, but I would like to present this to Kathy Russ, so I will meet her at the podium. That's really kind of nice.
Might have to get a hook for me.
Yeah, I would do that.
Okay.
You've agreed to be on the show, too.
Yes. Excited.
Well, it's my honor to be here this evening to present a proclamation declaring a Library Week, April 13th through the 19th, 2014. And if I could, I'd like to read this and present it to Kathy, if I could.
Sure.
Whereas libraries today are more than repositories for books and other resources, often the heart of communities, campuses, or schools, libraries are deeply committed to the places their patrons live, work, and study. And whereas libraries are trusted places where everyone in the community can gather to reconnect and re-engage with each other, to enrich and shape the community and address local issues. And whereas librarians, such as Kathy, work to meet the changing needs of their communities, including providing resources for everyone and bringing services outside of library walls. And whereas libraries and librarians have a powerful and positive impact on the lives of Americans on a daily basis. They bring together community members to enrich and shape the community and address local issues. And whereas librarians are trained, tech-savvy professionals providing technology training and access to downloadable content like e-books. And whereas libraries offer programs to meet community needs, providing residents with resume writing classes, 24/7 homework help, and financial planning services to teens applying for student loans to older adults planning their retirement. such as me. And whereas libraries continuously grow and evolve to how they provide for the needs of every member of their communities. And whereas libraries, librarians, library staff, and supporters across America are celebrating National Library Week, Lives Change at Your Library. And now, therefore, be it resolved that the Troy City Council take this opportunity to proclaim April 13th through the 19th, 2014 as National Library Week in the city of Troy with this theme, Lives Change at Your Library. And be it further resolved that the Troy City Council encourages all residents to visit the Troy Public Library this week to take advantage of the wonderful resources available to our Troy Library. And this is presented this 14th day of April 2014. It's signed by myself and all members of City Council. Congratulations, Kathy, and thank you for all you do. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Now, I'm going to turn the podium over to Kathy because she's going to take care of C2 and C3 this evening, and I see we have some distinguished people here in the audience, so I'll let you have the microphone.
Thank you.
Be careful.
Thank you. Thank you, Mayor Slater, and thank you, City Council. This is so exciting because it is National Library Week, and one of my very favorite parts of my job is when I get to come to City Council and see all of you, but I get to thank some of the wonderful people who make what we do at the library possible. So to start out with, we have a thank you to Brinker International, but I need to tell you a little story. I have a very industrious, enthusiastic young assistant named Justin Breyer who is fabulous at writing grants, identifying grants. So he talked to the teen librarian and the head of youth services, identified some needs that we had, and wrote a grant to Brinker International for board games. And to let you know, Brinker International, for those of you who don't know, is the parent company for Maggiano's and Chili's right here in Troy. So he wrote this grant, and we both did the happy dance in my office. I said, Justin, as soon as he came in, we received $500 from Brinker International. And what we did is we purchased board games, and we had an event called Board Games, B-O-R-E-D. We had 50 people there. The reason we chose this project was to give families an opportunity to come together, play together at the library, or also, you know, if you want to pick up Monopoly. Maybe you like to play Monopoly, but nobody at your house does. Well, you can come to the library and find like-minded people and have at it. So I really want to thank Brinker International, and Eric Batson, who's the general manager of Maggiano's, is here tonight. Where did he go? I've lost him. There he is. So I'd like to just publicly thank him and ask him to come up here. Thank you, Eric.
You're welcome. Well, with Brinker International, they've got a strong culture, and they like to be a strong presence in the community. And one of the things that we've recognized over the years, since 1975, is to give back to the community because the community gives back to us. And without a doubt, having the opportunity to share, not just in the education of little children, but that's also an investment for us, for the future of all of us. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I promise you won't need a hook for me tonight. But the next presentation is to one of my favorite people on earth. Eve Parsons is the vice president of the Friends of the Troy Public Library, and what many of you may not know is she does a lot of community outreach through the Friends of the Troy Library. So I'd like to ask Mike Kerr and Mike McHale from the Troy VFW to come up. They have a plaque that they want to present to Eve to thank her for her efforts.
I don't know if you know it or not, but Michigan Veterans Foundation not only has a shelter in Detroit, and during the winter they feed up to 300 walk-in people a day. They shelter about 150 to 180 veterans that are homeless. They also have 8 homes in the city of Detroit that they send these veterans out to that are close to places of employment. They must clean up the house, fix up the house, and maintain a drug-free location, alcohol-free location. Commander McHale and myself were involved in goals and objectives of VFW Pulse 4037, which also includes, I don't know whether you know it or not, but Michigan houses the National Home for Children in Eaton Rapids. And they house about 80 families there. It's the most beautiful place on the planet, and we try to support them as well. I went to Eve at the Troy Library, and I said, Eve, is there any way we can facilitate this, given these guys that are living in the shelters downtown, because they can only have certain items, personal items, in the billets? She said, sure. She said, I'll come up with some books that they can read. Plus, those books that they don't take are then distributed to the Veterans Thrift Store in Dearborn. The money they glean from the sale of those books pays for the gas, electricity, and food for the 8 homes that they have in the community, as well as the 300 meals a day that they serve down the shelter. This went on for about a year. We also support the National Home for Children in Eaton Rapids. I happened to go out there, and I said, now what else? I bring clothing out there. I go, what else do you need? The lady that was in charge out there says, geez, we could use some books because we're redoing our library. So I came back to Eve, and I go, Eve, do you happen to have any books that were fitting for school-age kids, everywhere from kindergarten to K-12? And she said, I'll fix you up. Well, I don't know how many times she filled up my truck, 4 that I can think of, but she sent so many school-related and school usage books out there that they finally had to say, no more, you filled our library. So on behalf of Pulse 4037 in Troy and Mission Veterans Foundation and the National Home for Children, we'd like to thank Eve very much for all her help, all her work, and all she's done to help in the quality of life of our veterans of foreign wars that are living in shelters and our National Home for Children. Thank you, Eve.
Should I pose?
Thank you. This is a great honor, but it's not just for me. I'd also like to acknowledge that many, many people help. It's not just me with this effort, and we're delighted to be able to do what we do. Thank you.
Thank you to everyone. Thank you so much. There are no carryover items this evening, so we will move to public hearings. We have one public hearing scheduled this evening, E1, a conditional rezoning application, file CR 011, a proposed Amber Town Center townhomes and lofts, 3409 Livernois, Section 21, from O Office District to BB Big Beaver District. I will open the public hearing and welcome city staff that's going to start off with a presentation. Good evening, Brent.
Good evening, Mayor Slater, city council members. The new podium, it's my first time up here.
You look good.
Look, not as good as this podium does, let me tell you. The item before us this evening, Mr. Mayor, is a public hearing for conditional rezoning application CR 11 for the proposed Amber Town Center townhomes and lofts. The property is located at the northwest corner of Livernois and Town Center Drive. There's an aerial photograph showing the site. It's approximately 1.23 acres in size. It's zoned O office. The property to the north and to the west is also zoned O office. Directly to the south is zoned CF community facilities. To the south and to the west of that, the zoning is Big Beaver. And the master plan you see here, I'm going to use my pointer a little bit this evening. You see here the parcel is designated on the master plan as being classified as Big Beaver land use plan designation. A little bit of background on this project just to keep everyone on the same page. You'll remember on January 27th, 2014, City Council denied the rezoning request from O office to Big Beaver for the subject property. You'll recall that was a standard rezoning. It was not a conditional rezoning. And the applicant is before City Council this evening for consideration of a rezoning, conditional rezoning application, and it's considered a new application. The applicant has voluntarily submitted a number of conditions with the rezoning application. The conditions are outlined in the attached site plan and as well as a corresponding conditional rezoning agreement. Both would be approved concurrent to the rezoning being approved if it were to be approved this evening. For, like all conditional rezoning applications, the owner of the property can only develop what is approved as part of the conditional rezoning application and the attached site plan, unless the conditional rezoning were to be amended, in which case it'd have to go all the way back to the beginning of the process with Planning Commission. And on March 25th, 2014, the Planning Commission recommended approval of this application by an 8-0 vote. This is the site plan. I only showed this one site plan drawing. There's a number of drawings in the application, but I wanted to make sure that the PowerPoint wasn't too lengthy. This shows the proposed site plan application. You see the building here is located on the southeast corner of the property. The setbacks are 10 feet from the town center right-of-way, 10 feet from the Livernois right-of-way. The distance to the northern property line here is about 54 feet from the building. It's almost not quite 100 feet to this property line. The distance from the proposed building to the nearest office building to the north is about 70 feet, and the distance from the building to the nearest residential property to the north is about 350 feet. In terms of elevations, I'm going to show you some elevations now. The proposed building is 4 stories in height plus a mezzanine. If you look at it from the street view, it looks like it's 5 stories, but it's 4 plus a mezzanine. But what's really important is the height of the building. How tall is the building going to be, regardless of how many stories? And the height of the building to the parapet here, which is the center structure here with the flat roof, is 51 feet. Now the version you see before you is version 1. This is recommended by the Planning Commission at their public hearing on the 25th of March. The predominant building materials are red brick, brown brick, and the gray material here, which is galvanized metal siding. That was the front of the building facing town center. This is the rear of the building, which is the north side of the building. I'm going to show you 2 more versions. Based on conversations with the applicant, the proposed elevations were revised since the Planning Commission public hearing, essentially with the addition of more brick. So I'm going to show you version 2. The brown brick was increased to the full height of the wall. The red brick increased an additional story, and it was increased to the full height of the wall at the end units. And this is important. The rear elevation is the same as version 1. So this is version 2, showing the brown here in the alcove extended to full height, the additional red brick here, and the additional red brick on the end units here. I warned you about the laser pointer. I apologize, but I need it. And this is the 3rd and final version I'm going to show you. In this version, there's even more brick. The brown brick was increased to the full height of the wall, as in version 2. The red brick was increased to the full height of the wall, and again, the rear elevation is the same. So here you see the brown brick, full height. The red brick goes all the way up to the top of the roof. And again, the rear of the building, the north elevation, remains the same. The resolution that's before you this evening seeks the approval of version 3, which is this version that's on the screen right now. The applicant provided line of sight drawings to show you the visual impact that the building would have in relationship with the residential properties to the north. This drawing is a line of sight drawing from the building. So imagine if you're in the building looking north towards the residential property. The yellow that you see is essentially the view shed from the building. And you see the impact of the 3 office buildings to the north, as well as the landscaping along this property line, really impacts what can be seen from the office building. It's with the exception of this little view shed here, it's essentially blocked looking from the building to the residential. And this is a bird's eye view. This is a street view showing you the impact that the office buildings and the landscaping has for the residential property. This is a line of sight drawing from the houses looking south towards the office building. Again, with the landscaping along the property line, especially to the east, as well as the 3 office buildings, it does dramatically reduce the impact of the building from the back windows of the residential properties. And again, this is the bird's eye view, and this is the street view that's showing you that when you do see the building, you really only see the kind of the northern, the tip of it. The zoning ordinance includes standards for approval for rezoning applications. There's 5 of them. And basically what this says is that if an application meets these 5 standards, it should be approved. And very briefly, the 5 standards are that the rezoning is consistent with the master plan, the rezoning will not cause or increase any nonconformity, the property is adequately served with public utilities, the rezoning will not impact public health, safety, or welfare, and the rezoning will ensure compatibility with adjacent uses of land. And it was a finding of Planning Commission staff, the planning consultant, and the Planning Commission that these 5 standards were met. I would note that a valid protest petition was not submitted to the clerk's office by noon today, which means that when this item is voted on, it needs a simple majority for approval, not a 2/3 majority had a valid protest petition been received. For recommendation, City Management recommends approval of the conditional rezoning application for the following reasons. 1, the Planning Commission recommended approval by an 8-0 vote. 2, the request complies with the master plan and meets the standards of section 16.03C of the zoning ordinance. 3, the conditional rezoning eliminates uncertainty regarding the future development of the property. 4, the abundance of office district property in the city has been well documented. 5, the rezoning would be compatible with surrounding zoning and land uses. And finally, 6, the site is adequately served with municipal water and sewer. That's my presentation, Mr. Mayor, and I can answer any questions you may have.
Thank you. Questions for Councilman Pennington?
Brent, I have a couple of issues. One is the sight lines you mentioned at the roof lines. So when we saw the proposal in January, it was pretty direct into the houses. And so what you're saying is with the elimination of that one floor, that eliminates all the line of sights from the top floor of the apartment building into those homes? You can only see the rooftops of the homes, is that correct?
Well, what it dramatically reduces, and I'm going to go back here. And Justin, you want to come up here? I'm going to go to the source on this, Councilman Pennington. This is the gentleman who actually prepared the drawing, so I'll let the expert speak on it.
Good evening, Mayor. Good evening, City Council. Before you is line of sight drawings. Yes, we have adjusted the building. We removed a floor from the building. We're down the height of that 51. This brought the terraces down 1 level as well. If we can advance to the next slide. This is the cross-section through the site. In the middle of the image is a house shape. That is one of the office buildings. You can see that is actually cutting the view line off from the balconies that is down on the 2nd level. And as we look up at the terraces, The view is over the roof, but again, there's no means to look down. The landscaping is shielding it. The trees are 55 feet at the property line. And the office building towards the property line is cutting off the view into the property.
Can we see the next slide? I think it's the next slide is what,
This is the view from the residence to the building.
okay, how about from the second floor of the homes? There you go.
Second floor from the homes. The office buildings are actually cutting the view off to the building.
Okay.
So
Because that was important in the first
Yes.
meeting, was that, people were upset that, they, in that fifth floor, they'd be able to look inside there, the
Correct.
second story of those homes. They also said swimming pools, but that's not, that doesn't come into play at all. And there's only two small corridors back in that first slide, where the line of sight, yeah, right there. Okay. The other question I had, Brent, was, thank you. The other question I had, Brent,
Maybe you could stay up there. I think we might have a couple more questions for you. I'm sorry. Brent?
and you didn't address it, was the parking lot issue. The parking lot for the apartment building is going to be in access with the parking lot for the two businesses. So how are you going to keep people from turning left, avoiding, exiting out the optometrist and the dentist office rather than turning left at the light?
We're not. It's, there's a reciprocal cross-access easement that's going to be there that allows unfettered access from the office building through this property, as well as apartment dwellers through the property to the north. It's reciprocal, and we had our traffic engineer and our traffic consultant review it, and his feelings were that it was going to impact both properties the same. It was going to be mutually beneficial to both properties.
Oh, I see. Okay. All right. Thank you.
Councilman Campbell?
Could you go back to that slide that you just had up with the line of sight with the overview?
Oops, sorry.
That's all right. There you go. Now, if I'm coming north on Livernois, I'm looking for that office building right behind it. How would I see that? How are you going to see any of those businesses coming north?
So if you're driving north and you're looking for this building here,
Yeah, looking for that building. How are you going to find that building? How are you going to know it's even there? And
Well,
the other two buildings as well. You're not going to see any of those buildings anymore.
yeah, obviously it's going to essentially screen it from the north. With the community center now, I don't know where you'd start picking it up going north, but the two offices that we're talking about, they're appointment only, I would imagine.
But they are businesses.
They are businesses, absolutely. So the answer to your question is it's going to be essentially blocked until you get to about this point.
And the other question is, I know you just mentioned 55-foot trees. I'm assuming you're not going to put in 55-foot trees.
The trees that
The trees that you just said are going to block everything.
the trees that is referring to are the ones that are along
How tall they're going
the
to be?
already existing.
How tall are they going to be? 10 foot? 8 foot?
Those trees are already there.
We're not putting any more trees in?
There's more landscaping, but they'll be planted at a significantly less height. But the tall trees that were referred to are these ones here along the property line to the north.
And to piggyback on that point, those trees we discussed last time, those have leaves on them, so basically 7 months out of the year, they're not going to block the view. But if I'm hearing correctly this evening, it doesn't matter if the trees have leaves on it or not. Are you saying that the building to the north will block the line of sight without the trees? Is that what I heard?
From the cross-sectional studies, yes, the buildings do block the line of sight from the residence to the building. Next. This view here would be the best one to show this.
Okay. Mayor Pro Tem Henderson.
Brent, the address for the business that Councilman Campbell was talking about, is that addressed on Civic Center Drive or is that addressed on Livernois?
Livernois.
It is addressed on Livernois. If we were to not have this plan go into place and a two-story building gets erected there that looks similar to those other buildings, would it not also block both of those buildings?
Yeah, I was going to piggyback on that. The underlying O zoning, the minimum setback, for O zoning is 10 feet. So, and the maximum permitted height is 36 feet. So theoretically, someone could purchase this property and put a building 10 feet from the right-of-way and also block the building. The building is relatively, I'll put the aerial up. It's set relatively deep on the property. They made a decision when they constructed this to have one building on the front and one building at the back. Councilman Campbell raises a good point. It's going to be obscured. If it was a convenience store and that type of a fast food place, that type where it's more of kind of a binge and drop-in type of a business, I think I'd have grave concerns. This is appointment only, and with everyone having, navigation systems and knowing where this is, I think the impact will be dramatically less. But your point is well taken.
No more or no less obscured than another building that might be lower in.
Yeah, like I said, a 3-story office building could be located in a similar location on the site, having a similar impact in terms of obscuring that office building.
Any other questions? I have a couple questions. You said that City Council was restricted to pass the resolution as presented with version number 3. If I could just ask the City Attorney, is there some discretion with us to allow base appearances or cosmetic appearances? That wouldn't have to go back to the Planning Commission, would it, if we just did some tweaking of the view or the appearance?
Mayor, first of all, the resolution that is proposed for your consideration does refer to the third iteration. However, all 3 have been offered by the applicant. It's important with the conditional rezonings that it has to all be offered by the applicant. And so all 3 of those have been offered. So you could modify if you chose a different version. You really would just need to modify where it says version 3. You would just substitute that for 1 or 2. As far as any other changes, there is a little bit of discretion for the planning director to approve non-substantive changes that are required because it's necessary or unexpected conditions or things like that. If additional conditions were offered and you wanted to incorporate those, I would certainly recommend that you do it in your resolution.
Okay.
And it has to be offered by the applicant.
Understood. And just a brief comment in regards to that. Version 3 was offered after a meeting with staff and myself and Mayor Pro Tem Henderson, and it was never my intent to be the architect in this this project. I was looking to see what their other versions may be out there that may satisfy some issues from residents and from council. So having said that, it was never my intent to play architect in this and bring version 3 forward as is. So if there's some discussion as we move forward tonight, I just wanted to let everyone know that. Councilman Teets.
So we have to pass that it would be version 3 or version 2. I guess I would
1, 2, or 3 unless the applicant asked for an amendment this evening on maybe some version in between 1, 2, and 3, or version 3 that might have it would be up to the applicant to do that.
So we can defer to the applicant to decide which one they, okay. That's
Councilman Campbell.
Just out of curiosity on the 5 reasons why the city manager thinks we should approve this. The compatibility seems, where in that area is there a building that's compatible with the design we just saw here. I know there's an angle on the community center on the roof, but beyond that, where is there any place that looks like that on Livernois, north of Big Beaver? Where's the how's it compatible, I guess, is my question. Or did I miss a building up there? Or?
No, I think this is a subjective standard, and this is why you're voting on whether you think that this standard is met or not.
But it's not really compatible. Compatible would indicate there's something else there that would mesh into it.
Well, I think if you look at the definition of compatible, again, it's subjective, but you've got to look at the scale, the massing, the hard lines, the fact that there's a 2 or 3 story office building to the west, there's a community center to the south. Again, it's subjective. And also piggybacking on that, has the applicant done enough to kind of soften the impact on the residential neighborhood to the north, on the residential neighborhood across Livernois? These types of thoughts kind of get wrapped up in that compatibility word.
Any questions for Brent? Did Mr. Amber wish to speak? Good evening.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, and also members of the City Council. I'm Dennis Cowan of Palenque Cooney, here with Jerry Amber, Vice President of Amber Properties Company, regarding our proposed conditional rezoning before you this evening. We learned a lot in our first go-round. We were here in January. We didn't take that as a loss, but part of a learning experience and a learning curve. And we took what we heard here from you, what we heard from some members of the Planning Commission, and members of both the commercial and residential neighbors that we have. And we, Mr. Amber put the architectural team to work to come up with what we believe is an improved, greatly and vastly improved project due to some significant changes. And I'm not going to go through all of them because Brent did a very good job, I think, of giving you a great overview. But the significant ones are reducing the height of the building to 51 feet. The Big Beaver District allows up to 71 feet. We never asked for that. The last version was 61 feet. We're down to 51 feet. The density has been removed from 60 units to 46. That is the entire floor of the studio apartments, which seemed to cause the most heartburn with some concerns about studio apartments. So we took that entire floor out, and that is what allowed us to reduce the density. But there is one similarity with this project in both versions that you saw in January and today. We are not asking for any variances to the Troy zoning code. We have enough parking. We have the appropriate setbacks. We've tried to move the building as far south as we could under the code and in working with your planning department. So we believe we now have an improved project for your review and consideration. And most importantly, one of the things we heard at almost every level is, if we're going to do this project, we think it should be a conditional zoning in the Big Beaver District to multifamily in the Form B. And that's exactly what we're offering this evening. There are 2 points we didn't discuss last time we were here in January. One was the fact that in your top 12 strategies for the City Council this year, number 7 is to promote Troy and find a way to convince youth to stay in Troy. As we've mentioned before, the Amber apartment project is geared towards a demographic in the range of 25 to 45. Now, I want to say, we do not discriminate. I can't get caught saying that when we don't. In fact, we have executives, some of whom work in Troy, who travel in some of our other communities in Royal Oak and Clawson, living in some of our townhomes and places of other places in the Amber family. But the key is, if you're going to try to attract that demographic to your community, you need to have a housing option for them. And in today's world, the open floor concept, the exposed ceilings, the wood floors, the loft-style living is what that demographic seeks. And the second thing we wanted to bring to your attention is something that, quite frankly, we forgot to tell you last time. And that is that every resident of an Amber apartment who leaves is asked to give the reason why. And generally they do. And the consistent percentage across the board in all the communities is that 22% leave because they're buying a home. And generally they're buying the home where they were living. So this gives Troy an additional opportunity to not only attract but retain the younger demographic that you would like to have, the professional class, so to speak. As we mentioned before, we have most of our average income is $70,000 a year. So we think that is a type of person who wants to, number one, they want to live in Troy, and hopefully that Troy wants to have. So I'm going to sum up my presentation by not me stating something, but something that was sent to you by John Madden, a Troy resident. And part of his letter said, "My concern is the future of Troy. We need development like this, moving to a more walkable, current century design, and not just along Big Beaver. We need development like this and renewal of our infrastructure to maintain our position as a leading city in Oakland County. We need to attract younger people to grow our population as the future homeowners in Troy." We agree. We believe this will be a small step in approving this project tonight. Thank you, and if you have any questions, we'll answer them now or we can answer them later.
Thank you. Any questions from council at this point?
Thank you.
Brent, did you want to say something? Thank you.
I wanted to clarify. I indicated earlier there was not a valid protest petition submitted. And by valid, what I meant was there was not a protest petition that met the state zoning and enabling legislation that basically says for a rezoning application, if there's a valid petition submitted that meets the requirements, which is essentially 20% of the property owners within 100 feet of the property signing it, that would make it valid. That did not happen. There was a petition submitted, and they used a protest petition form, but under state enabling legislation, it was not considered valid. Therefore, it didn't trigger the vote, the two-thirds majority. But people took the effort to walk the petition around, get signatures. So there was a petition circulated. I wanted to make that clear because a lot of effort was put into that.
Correct. Thank you. Any other questions from council before we open it up to residents? I see there are 2, 4, 6 residents that have signed up to speak on this item. We will take those first and then open it up to anyone else that wishes to speak. Ted Lavenway, Troy resident. Good evening.
How you doing tonight?
Good.
Yeah, my name's Ted Lavanway. I'm a 22-year resident of Troy. I'm a registered voter, head of the architectural committee for Lake Charnwood. I support this proposal. I support this proposal on the conditional rezoning, and I hope you do as well. If there ever was a project that was tailor-made for an area, this project is. You have the aquatic center, the library, you're within walking distance of the Marriott, which towers over everything. It's a perfect community for somebody to take up residence in and really contribute to the city of Troy. We call ourselves the city of tomorrow, today, but we have housing stock, just houses. We have townhomes. I don't see a lot of new construction apartments. This is a perfect community and a perfect setting for it, and I urge you to vote for it. The Troy Times had a great article on it. The Planning Commission all loved it. I mean, everything they wrote on there seemed to make sense. It seemed that Mr. Amber here is trying to comply with you all here in the City Council, and I believe the City Council is to represent all of the citizens of Troy, not just a select few, but all of the citizens. This makes sense, and I hope that you will support it. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next, Robert Warner, Troy resident. Good evening.
Good evening. My name is Rob Warner. I'm a resident, also a business owner here in the city, and an attorney. You'll probably have received a lot of emails and comments about this property. I kind of wanted to focus a little bit, though, on something slightly different, and that's sort of the position of the small business owner in this. On that corner, you have OMPT, and you have an eye doctor and folks like that. They've brought their businesses to Troy. Dr. Golden, who can't be here tonight, lives in West Bloomfield, but he brought his business to Troy. The owner of OMPT, who is here to speak, hopefully, he brought his business here to Troy. I myself brought my business to Troy a long time ago. There's an entity that made an offer to purchase that property. It was accepted, and through various things that occurred at court, I'm not going to get into because you're not a court of appeals, they don't have that ability to purchase the property at this moment. Amber has the right at this moment that they've been extending, but they have an offer on the table. They want to buy this land. They have a dream. They're a business owner in Troy on Big Beaver renting. They would like to have their own business too, their own home. Half of it would be occupied by one of the owner's husbands who would bring his medical practice here from East Point. That's pro-business. That's the small business owner dream. We've heard about OMPT's building being blocked out. The people that would like to buy this property and put on it have committed to building a one-story office building, small, reasonable, just like the others. Just like the others. This is a campus. You have medical. The doctor that would come from East Point, that fits in very nicely with the medical. That would extend all the way down to the new Children's Hospital facility that's going in. I understand across the street from this property across Livernois is going to be assisted living. Well, this building would house a doctor as well. Just want to create the flavor for what this land is, what it can be, and the dream of a small business owner that can be realized, just like the other three buildings that are there right now. Much has been made about the office vacancy in Troy, and how can we say, well, let's not look at this rezoning because we can't really look at the people that want to buy this property. Why would we look at that? We have to look at just this rezoning for what it is. But what I heard at the Planning Commission was we have to look at this because there's office vacancy. We have to look at this because what's the future development of the property? Point 3, future development of the property. What does that mean? Well, we can't just let it sit empty, right? It looks bad. Part of the gateway to Troy. Number 4, office vacancy in Troy. It's so high, we can't do this. But look at that land. There's no vacancy there. And if you put a small building there, there wouldn't be any vacancy in that building. It would already be occupied by Resource Point, which is an IT company, and the doctor, who's the husband of one of the owners, who would move his practice here from East Point. So I don't see how anything other than helping these small businesses realize their dream would be anything other than something that the city would want to do as pro-business.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Karen Cruz, Troy resident.
Good evening, Mayor, City Council.
Good evening. If you could use the microphone, please. Thank you. That's the only way we have to record it is to use that. So, thank you.
My name is Karen Cruz. I'm the president of the Westwood Park Homeowners Association. It is the subdivision that is just north of the Civic Center on the west side of Livernois. We have been working hard as a community to come together and come before you tonight to let you know that we completely oppose the development of this apartment building on the parcel of land at Town Center in Livernois. What I've tried to do tonight is to compile all of the reasons that the residents of Westwood Park are opposed. They include the design of the building doesn't fit the corner. The idea of the residential living space is great in theory, but isn't really workable in practicality the way that the Civic Center area is currently designed and used. 46 units will absolutely increase traffic at that corner and create safety issues for the city. And we still have, to our knowledge, a business that could potentially be interested in purchasing that property if Amber does not build the apartment building on that structure. So The design of the building doesn't fit that corner. Currently, it is a medical office corner. We could put another medical office building there, and it would be completely compatible and fit in. The contemporary design is not compatible, nor does it blend with anything that is in the surrounding area, and is actually, if memory serves me correctly, a violation of one of the requirements that you have to consider in passing this. It creates a benchmark for any future development that may come up on Livernois or in the Civic Center area. And frankly, if it's not compatible with what's already there, why would you want that to be your benchmark property as other developers come in and create development for the city? The existing Amber properties that the residents in my subdivision have driven around and looked at are tired. They're old. They're not particularly well maintained. There's no wow factor. It just lacks, generally speaking, in curb appeal. In 5 years, do we want something that is tired and generally lacking curb appeal at that gateway entrance into the Civic Center? The site plan may be okay, but it doesn't give my residents any comfort. It doesn't make them feel like they are truly protected. And there's definitely a lack of landscaping that exists in the current plan as proposed by Amber. We talk about that line of trees that isn't going to have leaves on it for 6 months, 7 months out of the year. Well, those line of trees are in my backyard, and I'm here to tell you they're very old, and they may die.
Ms. Cruz, your 3.
You're going to have to cut my, see, and I tried to compile everything so neatly for you all.
Yes, just to let you know, we did receive all the letters and all the emails prior to this meeting, but I have to cut you off at 3 minutes.
You do. You have to cut me off. Those are the rules. But I would hope that you would seriously consider your vote tonight and the impact it has currently and in our future. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker is Grayson Welsh, Troy resident. Good evening.
Good evening. I'll be brief. My name is Grayson Welch. I'm a resident here in Troy. I actually live in another Amber apartment over on Kurtz Boulevard with my wife. Been there about 3 years now. It's been a very good experience. While looking for apartments, I've even visited their other newer developments in Royal Oak and Clawson, which are very nice. I think one thing that hasn't really been mentioned yet is Amber Properties is not just a developer. They're a very good management company. So I don't think they're just going to plop a building on the site and leave you with it. They're going to keep it up. They do that all on their own. They're going to upkeep the building, the site. I think it fits in with what Troy's trying to do as far as the look and the feel of the building with the community center next door and the new developments over at Walsh College that are about to start. I'm actually a student there, so I've been keeping up on that a little bit. And so I just overall think it's a very good fit, and I urge its approval. So thank you.
Thank you. Jim Warpatinsky, Troy resident. Good evening.
Mayor, Council, City Administration, City Manager, Troy residents. I wasn't intending to speak tonight, but as some of you know, I sent an email earlier today, not about this particular topic, but it was a broader topic, but I mentioned Amber in my email. And so by the time I got done with that, between then and now, I said, well, maybe I do have a few words to say about this because I look at things a little differently. That's not my neighborhood, but I look at anything that's done in Troy as affecting my property. Because you go into a city and you see the bad part of the city, whatever, and you form an opinion of the whole city like that. So if you go to one area and you see a tall structure that you don't think belongs there, that gives you an opinion of my neighborhood, which is different. So I look at it differently. Plus, as you know, that email I sent you was talking about this Amanda Burton, who did this fantastic job in New York. And I want to quote a couple of things that she said. She was more into reclaiming property and doing parks. But she said, all around the city where there used to be parking spaces, there are now pop-up cafes. What's the trick, asked Burton. How do you turn a park into a place people want to be? It's up to you, not as a city planner, but as a human being. You don't tap into your design expertise, you tap into your humanity. You take that and you say, okay, this project is consistent with the city
master plan, perhaps. It fits into the Big Beaver District, which is gerrymandered the way a politician would love, no straight lines. So if you look at it strictly from a city planner standpoint and his training, expertise, well, this looks good maybe. But if you do it like Amanda said, look at it from a humanity standpoint, look at it as if there were no master plan, there is nothing to guide you there. And you just looked at it as a human being, you said, would a 4 or 5 story building fit here? Would that be a place that I want to be? Would that give me a sense of place? And I think the answer would be no. And so that's one of the reasons I'm against it. And I don't blame the developers for wanting to do that. Here again, Amanda says, she's talking about this High Line that they did. And she said, not everyone likes it. Developers, she says, see only one thing, customers. Wouldn't it be great to put shops all on the High Line? Wouldn't that make more money for the city? She said, no, that would make it a mall, not a park. So here again, we don't have any tall buildings on Livernois. I'd love to see Amber come into the city. There's other places that they could find to put their apartments. I'd love to see it. I'm not against apartments. I think multi-use, all that stuff is great. But do it where it fits. And in my opinion, it doesn't fit here. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Arthur Moras, Troy resident.
No, I've only got 3 minutes. I've got so much to say. I only come once every few years. But I have been here in Troy Township, which is Clawson, and in Troy for 39 years. I remember when the airport used to go all the way to Crooks Road and was a lot bigger. I'm here to say, let us not make another irreversible mistake, not another one. We've shortened down the airport. We made it smaller. We let other things happen. I saw the letter from John Madden. He talks, and other people have talked about a walking traffic. We need a walking traffic. Is this building going to attract that? Is that going to be a destination point? No. If you look at Amber, and I really appreciate you people's work, and this is one point I want to make. Everything that's yellow is residential. So we have 60 to 100 times more residential than we do have in the Golden Corridor. We have houses almost touching the Golden Corridor. These are all points that I brought out at different times. 1998, and I was part of the 2020 thing, and I think that was a very healthy input from the residents. And so many people were discouraged. They say, why bother? Why bother to put any input? And I've seen other cities where they really stimulate input from the citizens. I live just a few blocks away. What I'd like to see, Main Street has always been Main Street, all the way from Rochester coming in through Clawson. For many years, people talking about Main Street, including a place like a farmer's market, like a village market, like that place in Berkeley. I talked to the owner there, right on Woodward, you know, that market that's fruit and meat and everything. Now, on the corner of South Boulevard and Rochester Road is, you know, Vino, I forgot what his name is, but that market itself has a draw, a destination place. They built apartments and all that around the market. They had built a commercial around that. because it in itself brings people here. There's no 35, 45 people living in an apartment that's going to draw people here. And other people say, oh, this is a perfect place for that. No. When in the 2020 thing, we talked about the exodus of all the young people.
Sir, your 3 minutes is up.
All right, let me just, if I could, 30 seconds to conclude. The exodus of young people.
Mr. Maras, I'm sorry, but I'm going to have to cut you off at 3 minutes. Thank you.
We talked about a university district a long time ago. You know what they put there? A 7-Eleven. A 7-Eleven is not conducive to Section 22, Section 21. You know what was in Section 21? The world headquarters of
Thank you, Mr. Maras.
That's what that part should be.
Is there anyone else that wishes to speak on this item this evening?
So many things. It's in the
Mr.
wrong-
Peters, thank you.
I'd love to see them build, and I can personally pick out 10 places at least.
Mr. Maras,
30 places
thank you.
that would be better suited for multiple dwelling. That's the town center drive. That's the entrance to our city.
Good evening, Mr. Peters.
Your people sitting on their porches with barbecues and stuff, being in the center of the city.
Go ahead, Mr. Peters.
Hi, Council, Mayor, folks, people of Troy. I just want to, I'm not going to make any decisions on it myself, but I think these buildings should be efficient. I was watching this old house the other day, and they actually had these solar panels, and they had some that were for electric, and they had ones for water. Now, these things will come in, but in 10 years' time or 20 years' time, we don't know, there should be a short and long, what have you, but I would just wonder if we could take that into consideration and that the efficiency of these buildings before any decisions was made on it. So maybe might be a couple, what have you. Thank you.
Thank you. Please come forward and give us your name, please.
Good evening. My name is Michael Fahmy. I'm the owner of the OMPT Specialist, the Physical Therapy Building. And among all the speakers, I'm the most affected business by this building. So I'd like to discuss a couple points, but if you allow me, if I can have the map of the zoning on the screen. One that is the first issue that I have as a business.
Sorry. I'll put it up for you.
That would be good. This one is fine.
This one here? Yes.
There is another one that you had that it was a little bit zoomed to the one before, the one before.
There's this one? And there's
That
the
shows
other.
the parking lot and the trees. That's
This?
one. Yeah, that's fine. Two issues that I have. One is the traffic that the council member was asking, people going north. They see my building as they come close to the traffic light. If the building is up, then they're not going to see it. And if they missed that turn, then they either have to go through the eye surgery center, the parking lot, or they will miss it. So it's going to be hard to find it. Second, one of the other issues too is the privacy. I asked Mr. Ambers about the trees right between his parking lot, his garage, or the garage for the residents, and the apartments looking right into my building. Now, it's a physical therapy clinic. I have a lot of rooms, all windows. It's just gonna really expose everyone inside that building. He promised about the trees that will a lot of trees that will provide privacy, so that's one of the things that I'm wondering about. Second, the easement. We talked to the city, the city planner, the traffic expert. The easement is right in front of my building. And if that created a traffic jam, there's another map that shows people going out of the Amber building right to Livernois through our parking lot, me and Dr. Golden. Yes, that would work. The easement is right in front of the building 3435. If the city approves the Amber building, can we have a little bit of request of at least have the easement to move as far east as possible, close to Livernois? Not to open on Livernois. It will still open in front of Dr. Golden's building. I spoke with Dr. Golden, It's a second idea that we have. If the building is going to go up, if the easement can go a little bit further toward the east. So if there is any traffic jam or cars are waiting to get on Livernois, they will be backed up at Amber's parking, not in our parking where patients are going in and out. The other thing too, the signage, if the city can give us exception or allowance or anything, just to show where is my business at least, or the building, since it's going to be really blocked by the Amber apartments. The last thing that I want to say, the Troy area where the DMC, Dr. Golden, the I, my building, the urology group, and the other houses behind, they're creating like a medical hub for the city of Troy. I don't see any other medical hub in the city as in DeQuindra 19 Mile. So, thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else in the audience that wishes to speak on this item this evening? Mr. Sawyer? Good evening.
Evening.
Good to
Mr.
see
Mayor
you.
and City Council.
Could you use the microphone, Tom?
Sure.
Thank you.
I'm so tall here. I just want to tell council and you, Mr. Mayor, that I don't believe that this project belongs in this particular spot in the city. And it's just, I think you've got some wrong advice from your planning commission and commissioners. It just doesn't belong there. That's all I want to say.
Okay.
I mean, you're going to have to make up your own decision, but I just think that you got to think hard about this, you guys.
Okay.
And gal. You got to think hard.
Thank you. Thank you. Anyone else wish to speak? Any questions for Mr. Savant or the developer from council at this time? Brent, could you just address some of the concerns that were raised by the owner of the building behind there? I'm not quite sure I was understanding what he was talking about with the easement and signage issues. If you could just speak about that briefly. And some of the buffering, I think maybe if we could just, I believe there's been a commitment from Mr. Amber to provide sufficient buffering.
The northern portion of the property is going to be landscaped with a buffer of trees, right here.
Is it your opinion that that's good buffering between the two to take care of the issues with the site into the therapy building?
Given, you know, if you look at this area here, there's an office building that's closer to the site here. Given the height of the trees and the height of the windows, they'll be planted, I forget the height of planting, I want to say 8 to 10 feet at time of planting. They'll do a very good job of screening these windows from the property. Cross-access. There's hundreds of vehicle cross-access easements in the city, hundreds of them. And they're just what they sound like. They're to provide cross-access between properties. There's an existing cross-access here, and they were first. And our policy is that whoever's first gets a cross-access easement in, and when the property next door gets developed, they also provide a cross-access easement. It's reciprocal. And this, I met with the gentleman who just spoke, as well as the other doctor who owns the other building on the site to the north. Actually, it was Dr. Golden, I think, was the only one who was at that meeting. But Dr. Golden's concern was regarding the cross-access and the impact, potential impact that this would have on his property. And again, this easement this was bounced off our traffic consultant. He felt the easement was going to be beneficial to both parties. The trips are going to be dissipated throughout the day. I mean, there's going to be peaks in the morning and peaks in the morning when residents leave, peaks in the afternoon when they come back, but it's only 46 residents. Not everyone's going to leave at exactly the same time, versus an office building where the office hours are, 8 till 5. Everyone shows up at 8, everyone leaves at 5. This will be more dispersed. There's going to be people who work at home, people who work 4/10s versus 8/5s. There's going to be retirees, et cetera. So the impact in terms of peaks is going to be more dispersed with the residential versus the office building. So it's going to be shared, and it's going to be mutually beneficial. I forget the other. Was there other concerns? Signage. I don't know where the sign is now on that property. I apologize. If
It's
this,
on the building, I believe.
if it's on the building, I mean, we can work within the sign ordinance. The applicants can get together. They can look at the signage that's both on the building and the ground sign. If it's in a poor location, the sign can be moved. They can get with the applicant this evening and try to come up with some type of solution. Theoretically, they could put their sign on the corner of this property. I mean, it's really going to come down to looking at what the existing situation is in terms of signs, contemplating what our sign ordinance allows, and working together to come up with an amicable solution for all parties.
Mayor Pro Tem Henderson.
With regard to the easement getting in and out of Livernois, if I'm in one of those businesses and I tell my clients, turn left at Civic Center Drive, can they get into those parking lots off Civic Center Drive or only off Livernois?
They'll be able to. What could happen is, so I'm speaking for the resident of the apartment building. They're going to, if they don't know, the first time they don't know this is here, they don't know this cross access, they're going to come south on Livernois, they're going to turn, and they're going to go in this way. Then they're going to figure out it's there. And it may happen that they make the left and they go through and they park, okay? But the same cuts for the person going to the two offices to the north. They're going to try to come out here and turn left at a busy time, and it's going to take them what their perception is 10 minutes to turn left to go north. They're going to figure out really quickly that if they do this maneuver, they come through this property and come out and turn left on the light, they can get out quicker and safer and to go north. So
Lanes turn left.
there's 2 lanes that turn left, exactly. So again, it's going to take maybe a couple visits to figure it out, but this is going to flow and this is going to work for both.
Any other questions for staff? Mr. Cohen, is it my understanding that you want the resolution to stay as presented with version 3 this evening?
I've had a chance to talk to Mr. Amber. When we presented, version 2 has always been the preferable one of our architect and Mr. Amber. In fact, I might tell you that when we did version 3, we took Mr. Weber and his team kicking and screaming to do all brick, but that's okay. He understood. We did that to show how dramatic it would be if it was all brick, and I think it is rather dramatic, and we believe that that probably could use some softening up. So what I would offer for your consideration in place of that paragraph in the conditional zoning agreement, that version 2 with allowance for additional brick on the south elevation as approved by the planning department. The north elevation, I think everybody agrees, looks good, but it would only be on the south elevation. The elevation on the north side is the same in all the versions, so it'll be the same for 2. So that's what we would offer.
Councilman Pennington?
Okay. Brent, could you pull up version 2 again, just for clarity?
And while he's doing that, for the city attorney, is that an acceptable resolution? And did you happen to write that down?
Yeah. I'm sure that Mr. Cowan and I will talk about it later on, because I believe that that can be incorporated into the agreement, which has already been approved, but you might also put it in your resolution as well. And I thought it was just with the brick added as approved by the planning director.
Thank you. There's version 2. to let you know I did have a conversation with most of the residents at 6 o'clock this evening, and I think there was a consensus from them that they preferred more brick.
We understand
And before I close the public hearing, it's been my understanding from Mr. Amber, and I've talked to him 3 or 4 times during this process, that he is more than willing to work with the businesses behind to the north as far as buffering and the residents also. So that's my understanding. Okay, I'm going to close the public hearing and return it to the table for a resolution and discussion. Councilman Fleming.
Mayor, I'll move the resolution with the changes that we just discussed, which would be version 2, but I'm open to version 2 or version 3. But I'll move the resolution as printed for discussion.
Second.
I think as printed would be version 3. If you want to modify that, fine, but we'll just move the resolution as printed with version 3.
Okay, so you're moving it as printed with version 3.
Version 3. Just keep it simple now.
We're going to keep it simple for right now, and that was supported by Councilman Teets, was it? Okay, moved by Councilman Fleming and supported by Councilman Teets that we approve E1, the conditional zoning application proposed Amber Town Center townhomes and lofts at 3409 Livernois. Discussion.
Mayor.
Councilman Fleming.
First of all, I want to disclose something. I think I alluded to this the last time we had this public hearing and where we denied, but when you're running a campaign, you take donations, you put signs in people's properties and so forth. My last campaign I ran last year, I had signs, I believe, on some of Amber properties, signs all over the city. You probably got tired of seeing them. Also, we take donations from developers. I believe from associates of Amber properties, I believe $200 were given to my campaign out of approximately, as I recall, maybe $12,000. I want to be transparent and disclose that, but assure you as residents and anybody listening to this, that's not going to affect my vote at all. And I hope you understand that, but it happens. Probably other people on council have had similar experiences, but I wanted to get that on the table, first of all. Also, to say that I know that this is something Troy needs, but I know the residents and the businesses, nobody likes it in their area. But this type of housing, we've talked about this a lot at different meetings and so forth, it's needed in Troy. The question is this the right place for it? That's the question at the table here. We all know that it's needed. We need to attract the younger groups. Not everybody wants to live in a single-family residence. Not everybody can afford it. This will attract people that we want to live in Troy, that will use the businesses, walk to the Civic Center. I don't think traffic's going to be a big issue. This has really been studied by people on the Planning Commission who are very, very well respected, very well versed architects. They spent a lot of time looking at this. They're residents as well as business owners. Even one of the members of the Planning Commission has an office in one of the buildings just to the west of this proposed site. They are unanimous on this. This council appoints these people that are highly qualified to look at these things, do the due diligence. The city staff is recommending this. I know that you don't like it in your neighborhood, you don't like it adjacent to your business. I think the developer, though, in this case, has done everything they possibly can do to try to accommodate the concerns. I have to vote for this. I feel it's the right thing to do, and I'm going to support this tonight. But I understand your concerns. I've been into your subdivision at Westwood. I've been there to address concerns with residents when you had issues with sidewalks and landscaping. The city addressed that really quickly and dealt with it. So we try to listen to all the concerns. If this were on my corner, outside of my subdivision, and the same thing applied, I would have to vote for it. It's just something that we need in the city. It's the right thing to do. We've talked about it a lot. Now, we're not all going to agree on council. I don't know how anybody else is going to vote, but I just wanted to get that out on the table that I think this is the right thing No one likes it in their neighborhood, I understand that, but it's something that we need to attract a different type of demographic to this city. So that's why I'll be supporting it.
Thank you. Councilman Campbell.
I agree with some of the things you said, except for the fact that it belongs there. You know, I have no problem with the building. We've talked about the building before, but this is just the wrong place for it. It's the gateway to what we have as a campus for the city. I think that this property is not going to be used at this point is silly. You have a new hospital going up down the street. I'm sure that will be a medical facility before we can even blink our eyes. So I think to make a decision to have something that's not compatible, however you put that word together, it's not compatible with the area. Most of the residents don't want it. It's going to impact the businesses. It is going to impact traffic. And it's just, I think to make a decision just to get some tax dollars quick, I think is really not the way we should make decisions. Make decisions for the long term. And long term, I just don't want to be the one to vote for that being there, so I will be voting against it.
Thank you. Councilman Pennington.
Well, most of what I have to say is a little redundant, but it bears repeating. At the January 27th council meeting, I voted against the Amber Properties rezoning request. My main problem with the rezoning was that it was a standard or unconditional rezoning, which had given the city limited control if Mr. Amber's project went awry for some reason or another. The new proposal is a conditional rezoning, which gives the city more control, and Amber Properties is restricted by this preliminary site plan. Another problem I had at the January meeting was the fact that the Planning Commission was split on the original Amber rezoning request. After the City Council rejected the proposal, it went back to the Planning Commission, where they reviewed this proposal, and at their March 25th meeting, they voted 8-0 in favor of this conditional rezoning. This revised plan addresses some of the other problems I had with the project, mostly the height of the building, which they reduced from 5 stories to 4, which improved the sight lines of the structure. This means that you'll be looking at rooftops of adjacent homes and not into houses or pools, as was suggested to us with the higher structure. This reduction in height in turn reduces the number of units from 60 to 46, which partially addresses my concerns about traffic and parking. At the January 27th meeting, we were sent pictures of a building that was it was just an ugly building. But it turned out to be, it wasn't from Mr. Amber. It wasn't Mr. Amber's building. The building that we now are looking at is brick almost halfway up, has brick elevations that go to the top of the building, and they have two-tone brick in some areas that give it a contemporary look that is similar to the community center. We've heard from many residents opposed to the project, but we've also heard from residents who want different types of housing options for young professionals who want to live in the city of Troy. Nobody wants building in their backyard. Nobody wants change. But I just want to let you know why I'm changing my vote.
Mayor Pro Tem Henderson.
With all decisions here, I usually do go through a pro and con list of things. I voted in favor of this development before. And with the big ones, I write them down. So, I go through that exercise to make sure that I haven't missed anything. And we were fortunate enough to have a lot of emails for and against this project in the last week. So I was able to go through, look at those things, and develop my pro and con list using neighbors as kind of a guide for that. And I don't think I've changed my my opinion of whether or not this is needed there, and I think it's a good development. I think Mr. Amber has, even though it has affected his profit and loss statement significantly by reducing the amount of units, he's still interested in doing this. His bank is still interested in financing it. Some of the cons in my list came out of directly from emails. Transient residents were mentioned, and we need transient residents. We have people that come here for training, and I know a few of them at some of the local restaurants that live in Amber Apartments. They train here, they'll spend a year here, and then they'll move off to bigger and better things. And hopefully those bigger and better things are here in Troy, and they may buy a piece of real estate. So for all those reasons, I just think we need to move forward with this.
Councilwoman Hoderick.
I voted no last time and left the meeting very comfortable with my vote. Having said that, I became aware that Mr. Amber was hearing what we had said and was working things through. I spent, since that meeting, wrestling with this, talking with people. The truth is, people I very much respect and are very informed on these matters are for it. The further truth is, people I very much respect and understand these matters are against it. It comes down to, some of the discussion was about the subjectivity of this. I've walked that property so many times, I'm surprised I haven't been reported for stalking over there. I've walked the business parking lots next door. I've been out there in the cold. I went out there when it was warmer. I've been at different times. I took this very, very seriously. That's a prime piece of real estate in this city. It's not just someone's backyard. It's a gateway to our municipality, and I've really factored that into my decision-making. I very much respect our planning commission and our planning department, very, very much. And I understand the Big Beaver master plan. I think 5 years ago when this was designated, that made sense. For me, I feel like we're shoehorning this in right now. I had occasion to travel to Alexandria, where my daughter is living outside of DC recently, and I really took notice. It is very much a city like this one, residential, beautiful high school, lots of apartment buildings. And it finally hit me, subjectively, why I couldn't make myself, and I was trying to make myself comfortable with this. It's not in harmony with what's there. And first and foremost, frankly, the residents in the neighborhood is one thing. The businesses that establish themselves right there, if I owned those businesses, again, I walked the parking lots, I've walked there, I'd be frustrated by this. I'd be very frustrated that I invested and built that. We have an email from Dr. Golden. By the way, happy Passover to all our Jewish neighbors in the city tonight who aren't watching because they're celebrating that, but let's keep them in our thoughts tonight. He was very thoughtful about his reasons. And when you list the 5 areas where this needs to pass the test, I get why some people think it passes all those 5. It does not pass all 5 of them for me. It just, I want it to. I want to feel good about it, but it's not compatible with what's currently there in the surrounding zoning and land use, and I don't think it's compatible with the original spirit of the Big Beaver designation. And so I'll be voting no. It looks like this will pass. 10 years from now, I hope to stand at that corner with Mr. Amber and have him look at me and say, I told you this would work. I personally can't see it. No offense, please. I hope my planning commission people that have talked to me, I just am going to be voting my conscience as a human being, looking at that as someone who views themselves as a caretaker of the city. I'm not anti-development. I'm not anti-apartments. It's just not the right spot in my mind.
Thank you. Anyone else? Just for the record, we had 2 items that were placed on the table this evening in relation to E1 that were not in the packet. One is a letter from Mr. Cohen, kind of an update letter for this evening, and a letter from Mr. Golden, who does own the business to the north. So those were placed on the table. They were not in the packet this evening. I guess I'll be the last to speak unless Councilman Tietz wants to speak. But I was a no vote last time also. And I've really taken a look at this project since that no vote, and I tried to look at it from all of the perspectives. I met with the Homeowners Association president at least 3 times. I met with Mr. Cohen and Mr. Amber maybe 4 times, maybe more. I've talked to staff. I've talked to members of the Planning Commission. I've talked to other developers because I always think it's good to get a perspective from another developer, and I've talked to 2 that I respect greatly. So I feel that I have done my homework, and I voted no for a couple of reasons, but the main reason that I voted no was that I didn't think the master plan was the same today as when it was passed 6 years ago. And I was concerned that we were going to put a portion of the Big Beaver corridor into an area that in the future we weren't going to designate it as the master plan. And that had an overriding effect on me in my vote. I was concerned about the height, I was concerned about traffic, I was concerned about the appearance, but my main concern was whether that was going to be the Big Beaver district in the future in the next master plan. And I have to say, after listening to everyone and listening to the input from the Planning Commission, I believe it is going to remain as part of the master plan, even in the future master plan when it's done. So I'm not really concerned about that anymore. I'm not concerned about the height and the density because I think Mr. Amber has addressed those issues. I'm not concerned with traffic. I think we all have to understand that when you build, that brings cars, and this isn't the only project that's going to be on that corner in the next 5 years. So I think the traffic issues have been addressed, the safety issues have been addressed. So it really comes down to, in my opinion, the appearance. Does it fit? Doesn't it fit? And now that we have a conditional rezoning, which was very important to me also, as Councilman Pennington indicated, that's been resolved. So I met with Mr. Amber and I talked to him about the appearance, and I found Mr. Amber to listen to every concern that I had and try to address it, short of tearing down his building and investing millions of dollars into something else. I think he did as much as he probably could to try and address the problems. I asked him if he could put a brick front on it. He did that. That's version 3. I asked him to do some other things and he did it. So I respect that, just to let you know. And he gave me a pledge that he would work with the businesses to the north and he would work with the residents also. He pledged that, and I believe he'll do that. So I have changed my vote. I am going to vote yes on this project for many of the reasons that were presented tonight. But most importantly, I met at 6 o'clock this evening with the Homeowners Association of the subdivision to the north, and we talked for an hour. And I thought I owed it to them to have a face-to-face discussion to talk about why I changed my vote. And I think I owed that to them. So I did that. And I am going to, because I am somewhat responsible for version 3, and as I indicated, I do not want to be the final architect on this development. One of the reasons that I changed my vote is as Councilman Pennington indicated, the Planning Commission voted 8-0. That is very important to me. The city administration supports it. That's very important to me. I'm not an architect, never have been an architect. I listened to the residents, and the residents asked me if they could have more brick. So that's why I brought that forward. I am going to amend E1 to include the language that was presented by Mr. Cohen earlier and hopefully written down by City Attorney Bloom. and it will refer to the section where we talk about version 3 elevations, and if I could just substitute that language in there, and if you could help me with that, Ms. Bloom?
Mayor, just so that I'm clear, right now, the resolution is for the third version, which is brick all the way up. So you want to amend it to allow for the planning director to add,
Version 2 with the planning director in concert with Mr. Amber. Somehow to make that front look good with brick. And when I asked Mr. Amber to see if he could put brick on the front of that, I can only imagine the discussion that he had with his architects, but he came back to me like within a couple hours with a brick version. So he gave the architects a matter of hours to put together something that I think they would have liked to have some additional time to do. So if I could reach out to City Attorney Bloom, and if you you understand where I'm trying to go?
Version 2 or 3 with the...
so your motion then would be to amend the motion to strike 3 and make it 2, and also to allow, to provide direction, or to defer to the planning director for additional elevations of brick on the front.
And hopefully they would understand that more brick, the better. Okay, so, okay, I'm moved by the chair and supported by Councilman Fleming that we approve the amended E1 to reflect the language that was presented by City Attorney Bloom.
Just to clarify, this is on the amendment, correct? I mean, this is, the first is a motion to amend.
This is a motion to amend.
Yes.
Discussion on the motion to amend.
Mayor,
Councilwoman Hoderick?
I can see where this is going.
I know you can count, right?
I like what you're doing here, because the harmony piece is, I think the really urban design people saw subjectively as being consistent with the community center. And I think what you've been hearing and listening to is you have that brick for the neighborhood, you have those beautiful office buildings next door. Achieving that harmony I'm talking about is really important. And I think you can have that contemporary feel to attract the demographic you're talking about and still have that kind of traditional Troy that gives a nod to our history and our presence there. And it sounds like you're willing to do that. So I appreciate that. I appreciate that effort.
Any other further discussion on the amendment? Ms. Bitter, we're going to vote on the amendment first, is that correct?
Right. Councilmember Campbell?
No.
Councilmember Fleming?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Henderson?
Yes.
Councilmember Hoderick?
I can vote yes on this and no later.
This is yes on, this would be just on the
Yes.
amendment.
It's confusing.
Councilmember Pennington?
Yes.
Councilmember Teetz?
Yes.
Mayor Slater?
Yes. Motion passes.
And now you need to vote on the resolution as amended.
Okay.
So we need to,
Is there any discussion on the amended vote? So this is, you're going to vote on this if this is what you want?
This is it.
This
Yep.
is it. Okay. The vote, Ms. Bittner?
Councilmember Fleming?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Henderson?
Yes.
Councilmember Hoderick?
No.
Councilmember Pennington?
Yes.
Councilmember Teetz?
Yes.
Mayor Slater?
Yes.
Councilmember Campbell?
No.
Motion passes. Thank you and good luck, and let's take a 5-minute break. Our next order of business is City Council or City Administration response to public comment that no one signed up for this evening, so.
We have no response, I guess.
Is there any response to nothing?
I think we're all talked out.
We all agree with it.
There are no postponed items this evening, so we will move to regular business. I-1 is board and committee appointments. There are no mayoral appointments this evening, and I will turn the microphone over to Mayor Pro Tem Henderson for city council appointments. While we're doing that, there was some discussion this evening to split these up and not vote for them all the same. So if we could do the Charter Revision Committee first and split them up
Separate? Sure.
separately.
All right.
So there could be an individual vote on each one.
Okay. Mayor?
Yes, sir.
Resolved that the Troy City Council hereby appoints the following nominated persons to serve on the boards and committees as indicated. For the Charter Revision Committee, first is Frank Hauerlach, term expiring April 30th, 2017.
We'll do both names, but we'll just do the Charter Revision.
Charter Revision separate from the...
No, we'll do them all separate, but just, we'll do each appointment for the pair or whoever is involved in that particular appointment. So we'll do Cynthia Wilshire along with Frank Hauerlach.
Okay, and the second appointee, Cynthia Wilshire, term expiring 4/30/17.
Support.
Moved by Mayor Pro Tem Henderson and supported by Councilman Fleming that we appoint Frank Hauerlach and Cynthia Wilshire to the Charter Revision Committee with terms that expire on 4/30/2017. Discussion.
Mayor,
Councilman Hoderick?
we can vote separate, we're going to vote separately on each.
This,
Yes or no?
Unfortunately, we have to vote for both of these at the same time, so if you're not in favor of one, can we split them up,
you
Ms.
could.
Bittner?
Yep, you could.
Okay.
You
Would you
could vote-
prefer to split these up?
I would.
Okay.
So then what you'd do is amend your motion to just be one of those members.
Okay.
Okay.
So I'd like to amend the resolution and vote on Frank Hauerlach first, term expiring 4/30/2017.
Support?
Support.
Moved by Mayor Pro Tem Henderson, supported by Councilman Fleming, that we appoint Frank Hauerlach to the Charter Revision Committee for the term that expires 4/30/2017. Discussion. The vote, Ms. Bittner?
Mayor Pro Tem Henderson?
Yes?
Councilmember Hoderick?
No.
Councilmember Pennington?
Yes.
Councilmember Teetz?
Yes.
Mayor Slater?
Yes.
Councilmember Campbell?
No.
Councilmember Fleming?
Yes.
Motion passes.
And the second name, Cynthia Wilshire, also term expiring 4/30/2017.
Support?
Moved by Mayor Pro Tem Henderson, supported by Councilman Pennington, that we appoint Cynthia Wilshire to the Charter Revision Committee for the term that expires 4/30/2017. Discussion? The vote, Ms. Bittner?
Councilmember Hoderick?
Yes.
Councilmember Pennington?
Yes.
Councilmember Teetz?
Yes.
Mayor Slater?
Yes.
Councilmember Campbell?
Yes.
Councilmember Fleming?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Henderson?
Yes.
Both pass.
Do we need to split the personnel board too? or
Does
is
anyone
this-
wish to split the personnel board? No.
On the personnel board, I'd like to forward the names Deborah Bowman and Michael Rosenberg for terms expiring 4/30/2017.
Support.
Moved by Mayor Pro Tem Henderson, supported by Councilman Fleming, that we appoint Deborah Hoffman and Michael Rosenberg to the Personnel Board for terms that expire 4/30/2017. Discussion? The vote, Ms. Bittner?
Councilmember Pennington?
Yes.
Councilmember Teetz?
Yes.
Mayor Slater?
Yes.
Councilmember Campbell?
Yes.
Councilmember Fleming?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Henderson?
Yes.
Councilmember Hoderick?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Need to split zoning board of appeals?
Anyone wish to split? No.
All right. Zoning board of appeals, Alan Neal and Dave Lambert, both terms expiring 4/30/2017.
Support.
Moved by Mayor Pro Tem Fleming, supported by Councilman Campbell. What did I say? If I didn't say it, this was moved by Mayor Pro Tem Henderson, supported by Councilman Campbell, that we appoint Alan Neal and Dave Lambert to the Zoning Board of Appeals for the terms that expire 4/30/2017. Discussion? The vote, Ms. Bittner.
Councilmember Teets?
Yes.
Mayor Slater?
Yes.
Councilmember Campbell?
Yes.
Councilmember Fleming?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Henderson?
Yes.
Councilmember Hoderick?
Yes.
Councilmember Pennington?
Yes.
Motion passes. Next is I-2, Board and Committee nominations. The first is mayoral nominations, and there was a yellow sheet placed on the table this evening for I-2A, which added another vacancy to the Brownfield Redevelopment Authority. So I'm not going to take action on this item this evening. Next is the Planning Commission. There is a vacancy created by the resignation of Robert Schultz. I have talked to an applicant, and I was hoping to have a decision this evening, but it looks like I'm going to have to wait till the next meeting, so I'm going to pass on this evening also. And I will defer to Mayor Pro Tem Henderson for City Council nominations.
None at this time.
I-3, there is no request for closed session this evening, so we will move to I-4, the Do Not Knock Ordinance, Chapter 74 Amendment, introduced by Ms. Bittner, City Clerk.
Thank you, Mayor.
Good evening.
Thank you. The Do Not Knock Ordinance is an amendment to Chapter 74 that establishes a list that residents can voluntarily sign up their addresses on, and the list would be given to solicitors when they receive their peddler permit or their charitable permit, so that those addresses would be off limits to those solicitors. So it would prevent, residents would be able to prevent licensed solicitors from coming to their door. Also, in that chapter, another major amendment we did was we amended the time that solicitors are allowed to solicit so that it's seasonal. So between October 1st and March 31st, solicitors would only be allowed to solicit between 9 a.m. and 6 p.m., and then between April 1st and September 30th, they'd only be allowed to solicit 9 a.m. to 8 p.m. So that'll cut down on the number of solicitors going door to door during when it's dark out. And then there were some other minor amendments made that are more like housekeeping.
Thank you. Any questions for City Clerk Bittner? Somebody like to move the resolution so we can have a discussion? Councilman Fleming?
Mr. Mayor, I move Resolution I-4, Do Not Knock Ordinance, Chapter 74 Amendment, as printed.
Support.
Moved by Councilman Fleming and supported by Councilman Pennington that we approve I-4 as printed. Discussion. It's a great idea, and thanks for putting that together. I think there is a concern in the community when people knock on your door when it's dark outside, so I think it's a good thing. The vote, Ms. Bittner?
Councilmember Campbell?
Yes.
Councilmember Fleming?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Henderson?
Yes.
Councilmember Hoderick?
Yes.
Councilmember Pennington?
Yes.
Councilmember Teets?
Yes.
Mayor Slater?
Yes, motion passes. I-5 is the Troy RCOC Concrete Pavement Replacement Program, which will be introduced by City Manager Kishnick with the assistance of Bill Hootery, Deputy City Engineer. Good evening.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, City Council. Normally, I wouldn't introduce this item, and clearly I would never profess to take the place of Mr. Hootery in all the capital work that he does with Mr. Van Dett and the great work that they do of turning $5 million into $10 million. But having said that, I thought it was appropriate, because we had the study session last week, to bring this forward, not in a bid award at this point, that's later in consent, but at least to solidify and establish the program as presented by staff. And it truly is a team approach, and several people have taken part of this, and they've done a great job from engineering up throughout the city. But this would be to formalize the program of taking $5 million of city funds and the fund balance and turning it into $10 million and getting going with our road work.
Thank you. Questions for staff at this point? Somebody like to read the resolution this evening?
Mayor?
Councilman Hoderick?
I'd like to move the motion, or move the resolution, resolved that City Council hereby approves the $10,535,000 Troy RCOC Concrete Pavement Replacement Program for comprehensive concrete pavement replacement on the following RCOC roads: Long Lake, Rochester to Livernois; DeQuinder, Big Beaver to 14 Mile Road; Big Beaver, Rochester to DeQuinder; John R., Long Lake to Maple Road; Long Lake, Livernois to Northfield Parkway; Big Beaver, Adams to Civic Center; Crooks, Waddles to Square Lake. And be it further resolved that the City Council hereby approves the transfer of $5 million from the general fund balance to be used as a match to approximately $5,500,000 in outside funding. Be it finally resolved that budget amendments will be processed and presented to City Council to reflect actual expenditures under this program to reconcile costs within the appropriate budget year.
Moved by Councilwoman Hoderick and supported by Councilman Campbell that we approve item I-5 as printed in red. Discussion. Mayor Pro Tem Henderson.
I'm fairly certain that any one of us in the last 3 or 4 months, no matter where we go, if people know that we're on City Council, they want the roads fixed, period. And that's been a huge topic of conversation everywhere. And I applaud our departments that took part in trying to find the funding. It's I'm sure that was an octopus with more than 8 tentacles that you had to wrestle with. So again, my applause for putting that together.
I second that. Further discussion? The vote, Ms. Bittner.
Councilmember Fleming?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Henderson?
Yes.
Councilmember Hoderick?
Yes.
Councilmember Pennington?
Yes.
Councilmember Teetz?
Yes.
Mayor Slater?
Yes.
Councilmember Campbell?
Yes.
Motion passes. Thanks again, Steve, Bill, for your hard work as usual. Thank you. You too, Brian.
They do all the work, I just show up in the morning.
I understand.
We know.
We know. I-6 is the general fund balance policy with an introduction by Tom Darling, Director of Financial Services. Good evening, Tom.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Good evening, City Council. There's been discussions over the last few months between City Council and management in regards to fund balance. This culminated in a study session on April 7th of last week to discuss fund balance. What you have before you is a recommended policy developed from those discussions. It incorporates standards from the Governmental Finance Officers Association, or the GASB. It also incorporates the format recognized as a best practice from the Michigan Governmental Finance Officers Association. Some of the highlights include unassigned fund balance in a range, or maintaining a fund balance, unassigned fund balance in a range of 20 to 30%, and also in line with the Bond Council recommendation that we heard to maintain our AAA bond rating. It also incorporates the call for a financial plan if we fall outside those parameters, and it provides a timeline for that plan to be submitted. And I'm here for any questions that you have in regards to this policy.
Thank you. Any questions for Mr. Darling? somebody like to move the resolution? Councilwoman Hoderick?
I will. I'd like to move the resolution resolved that Troy City Council hereby approves the general fund balance policy as submitted, a copy of which shall be attached to the original minutes of this meeting.
Support.
Moved by Councilwoman Hoderick and supported by Councilman Fleming that we approve I-6 as printed in the agenda. Discussion? Councilwoman Hoderick?
This has been a major discussion in this community for a couple of years, just trying to understand. There was debate, discourse about it. Appreciate the work, the city manager, Mr. Darling, that you've done to help us come to a conclusion that's a best practice, I think, and helps to guide the entire community as to how we go forward. It was very thoughtful, it was very deliberate, and very instructive. I think we all learned a lot in the process, and I appreciate it very much.
Comments? Just to expand on that, I certainly appreciate this item because there has been a misconception in the past at least 4.5 years that I've been on council that there was a policy in place for the general fund balance, and that has been misrepresented, and it will be nice to have a policy in place, and now everyone will know what the policy is instead of somebody trying to make it up. So I appreciate it, and maybe this will put to rest some of the other issues that revolved around a general fund balance policy. So thanks for the work. The vote, Ms. Bittner?
Mayor Pro Tem Henderson?
Yes.
Councilmember Hoderick?
Yes.
Councilmember Pennington?
Yes.
Councilmember Teets?
Yes.
Mayor Slater?
Yes.
Councilmember Campbell?
Yes.
Councilmember Fleming?
Yes.
Motion passes. Next is the consent agenda. Is there any items that council wishes to pull this evening in the consent agenda? Hearing none, would somebody like to move the resolution? Mayor Pro Tem Henderson.
Resolved that Troy City Council hereby approves all items on the consent agenda as presented. Support.
Moved by Mayor Pro Tem Henderson, supported by Councilman Pennington, that we approve all items on the consent agenda as presented. Discussion. The vote, Ms. Bittner?
Councilmember Hoderick?
Yes.
Councilmember Pennington?
Yes.
Councilmember Teets?
Yes.
Mayor Slater?
Yes.
Councilmember Campbell?
Yes.
Councilmember Fleming?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Henderson?
Yes.
Motion passes. If you were here on a consent agenda item this evening, they all passed. Next are memorandums and future council agenda items. There are none on the agenda this evening, so we will move to public comment for items not on the agenda from Troy residents and businesses. And first up is Nancy Morrison. Chief, she's not in the hallway, is she? While we're looking, Tom Sawyer, Troy resident, wishes to speak.
My name is Tom Sawyer, and as some of you on City Council may know, I already figured out I have a very famous name. I also have a father that was at one time the city attorney in this great fair city. So I want to say that I was named after him. When it came time to have a son, I had a son. His name turned out to be Tom Sawyer. So there are 3 Tom Sawyers that live in this fine fair city. And back in, I started to go, I learned about it in 1992. I went to Hannibal, Missouri. Of course, Hannibal, Missouri is the home of Mark Twain, hence my tie. I love the city of Hannibal, Missouri. because my name is very famous there. And so far, I have become famous when I go to Hannibal, Missouri. And I've been going to Hannibal now since the year of 2010. But since 1956, the Hannibal Jaycees have put on National Tom Sawyer Days in Hannibal, Missouri. And although the accounting of the adventures of Mark Twain is not documented as when or how old Tom Sawyer was when Mark Twain wrote the book, they do figure that Tom Sawyer was between 10 and 12. So that's how they designated National Tom Sawyer Days in 1956 for young people between the ages of 10 and 12. The major event in Hannibal is, of course, the National Fence Painting Competition, which my son and I have now participated in, me in the over 30 competition since 2010, and him in the under 30 competition since 2010. So, to make a long story short, and last year, I went up before the city council in Hannibal, and I gave them a flag. The flag that Tom Sawyer of Troy, Michigan flies at his home. I had it made and manufactured on my behalf, and I decided that I would give them that flag last year in front of city council in Hannibal. I did. I made national news. I made 5-state news in and around Missouri. I feel that...
Mr. Sawyer, your time is up. If you'll allow me, I'm going to move to amend to waive the requirements. Allow Mr. Sawyer to finish his discussion about the flag.
Support that.
Moved by the chair and supported by Councilman Fleming that we waive the requirements and allow Mr. Sawyer to finish. If you could, within 1 minute, please.
I know all of you want to go home. I understand that, okay?
Wait, hang on a minute. Sure. 1 minute. The vote, Ms. Bidner?
Councilmember Pennington?
Yes.
Councilmember Teetz?
Yes.
Mayor Slater?
Yes.
Councilmember Campbell?
Yes.
Councilmember Fleming?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Henderson? Yes. Councilmember Hoderick?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you, Mayor. And so, to make a long story short here, I've come to Troy City Council to ask if possibly the city would give me a flag of the city of Troy to take back to Hannibal, Missouri this summer, so I can have it flown forever in Hannibal below my flag on Broadway Way in downtown Hannibal, please.
Thank you. And if you could just talk to City Manager Kishnick, maybe he could help you out with that.
I would thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Because it's been a lot of fun to do this. It's been a lot of fun.
Thanks.
I'll go home, please. Okay.
Thank you, Tom.
Thanks, Tom.
Thanks. Thank you.
John Marinick?
Yes. Good job.
I tried. Good evening.
Yes, good evening. My name is John Marinick. I'm a citizen of Troy for about 21 years. I live in the Waddles, Livernois area, and I still have power today, which is nice. I'm here to talk about one thing that's kind of important to me and maybe a couple other people, and probably you may even know about it. It may not even be a big issue, but I just want to put it into public light just for my sake and for perhaps others. I ride my bike to work almost about once every 3 days, about a third of the year when the weather is good. There are two places that are pretty difficult for me to go. What I do is I travel down Livernois and then go to the PNC building. I used to be at the AT&T building, now called Centennial. That was a much easier ride, only about a mile and a half. There's a part right, literally, I'm just almost pointing to it, at the drain that I call the ditch or the creek or the stream. That's right south of the new apartment complexes you guys just voted for. That has a bridge. There's a slab of concrete there. It's been patched with asphalt. That asphalt has gone away. You can actually see right through it. There's also a horseshoe crack right at the north side of that slab. It just always makes me nervous going across it. So if somebody could please look at that, you may already know about it, but I just would like to let you know, just in case, because I don't know how many people actually walk there, even though you could potentially now have 40 to 60 more people walking there. The other one is across from the PNC building in the walkway, right by the Bonefish Grill, which is that new place. The new place is right there, just west of I-75. I typically take my bike there, hit the old button to go to the crosswalk, the very first crosswalk after west of I-75. That does not work. On Saturday when I went to work, well, actually I've been riding my bike about 4 or 5 times since the weather broke. It's never worked for me at all, and I've just had to wing it. Either that or go all the way down to Crooks, which is another, basically almost close to a half a mile there and a half a mile back. So what I'm looking for is for somebody just to take a look at that. I know it's new construction, it's probably been overlooked. So could just somebody take a look at it, because on Saturday, I hit that button, it's blinking yellow all the time, I could not pass, and those cars don't care about me whatsoever. So that's all I'm asking for is those 2 areas to be looked at, since I don't want to fall into the river, and I don't want to get smashed by a car. Thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And, just in the future, City Manager Kishnick has an open door policy, and he welcomes residences to call him if they have issues, and it might be quicker to just give him a call, and he'd be, I'm sure, happy to address an issue, especially if it's a hazard or dangerous. So I believe both of those have been noted this evening, and I saw Mr. Kishnick nodding that he's either aware of it or will take care of it. Thank you. Jim Warpatinsky, Troy resident.
Good evening again.
Good evening.
Understand not long ago you asked for some potential ways to invest fund balance, and I had a couple things I wanted to mention. One is the dog parks, because that's near and dear to my heart. I'm assuming that we will invest some money in the dog park. I noticed on your potential ways to invest sheets here show dog park 50,000 costs per year. I don't quite know what that means, but dog park after it's built really would probably sustain itself, have key cards for the people who want to use it. They pay so much. So an ongoing, I don't think it would cost any money. And 50,000 would probably get you a bare bones dog park. You want to go whole hog. I think there's a couple of places out west, Novi or Northville or something that's doing one for maybe 200,000 or whatever, but whatever, a dog park. And the other reason I wanted to mention it too is I did find kind of what I consider a glaring error. I talked to a lot of different people, including a lot of seniors, because my dear Susan and I used to work the elections. A lot of seniors work the elections. We got to know a lot of those folks. I go to the community center from time to time, and I'm the type of person that talks to anybody, so I talked to a lot of them there. And as some of you know, I go door to door on the elections, and I talk to a lot of seniors there, because seniors are more often home than other people aren't. And so I know a little bit about them, and I noticed on this potential ways to invest, I didn't see anything about seniors. And we used to contribute money to the senior activities before the cutbacks to over there to Parks and Recs, and then we made a decision that everything should be self-sustaining at the community center, which is fine, except I think some of these seniors, particularly, all of them aren't wealthy like we are. A lot of them depend on some of these things. I ran across one recently when I was in Clawson. I said, "What are you doing on Clawson?" She said, "Well, I came down here to their center." I said, "Why don't you go to ours?" She says, "Everything costs up there." She said, "You can't even play cards up there without spending money." So I think you should put money back into the senior program. And the only other thing I want to mention is for sure, to continue on with the Historical Society Nature Center and whatever they're asking for. If they're asking for 50 and 75 again this year, I'd give them one more year of that. Robin Beltramini, as you know, is asking for money for Troy Youth Assistance, and I support that. And I think the police and/or Nancy Morrison will be asking money for the Community Coalition. I would support that. And thank you much.
Thank you. Richard Peters, Troy resident. Good evening.
Again, council, mayor, people of Troy. I noticed the fuel prices are going up a little bit, and I thought we were supposed to be, I was kind of wondering about that. But on these things last week, about these properties that were being sold, what came to my head later on was about if some of them were old growth forest or not. And even though I know the city is on a budget and whatnot, if I hope in the future they would consider that. Now for my main, we just seen another stabbing in a school lately, and we've had shootings and all this stuff in schools. And personally, I think America is in a national crisis, and I don't think people really realize it. It just seems like every week somebody gets shot, or somebody gets killed, or somebody gets stabbed. I mean, I think Congress or even people in this should go into each of these schools and find out what's going on. Is it the teachers? Is it the students? Is it the parents? I mean, we have a crisis here, and I don't think that the leadership of our country is really grasping that. And I just think that maybe we could have a congressman or a senator go around to these schools and find out what's going on. And because obviously, I think there is something. So that would be my sentiments. Thank you very much.
Thank you. That concludes those that have signed up to speak on this item. Next is council referrals. There are no items advanced by the city manager. Next is council comments. Mayor Pro Tem Henderson.
Mr. Marinick, before you leave, Brian, I saw the light bulb go on. Is the bridge that was in question, is that addressed in the construction?
That, in a simple answer, that culvert on Livernois will be replaced under the...
is that part of the master, the whole reworking of the waterways?
No, that's a separate project. This is one that Bill Hootery and Steve Vendette were able to, this is actually Martin Hauerlach, Representative Hauerlach and Senator Popachor's got money for Crooks Road and also the Livernois culvert that you were talking about. Yeah, I wish I could give you a time frame, but if I did that right now, I'd probably be wrong. But I believe it's this summer, so. And I'll check at the I'll check on the other. If you contact the office in the morning, I'll check on the crosswalk.
And please keep in mind, if just because we have a project that's going forward in the future, if there's an issue where it's a hazard or dangerous, it doesn't mean that we won't fix it. So
it just so happens in this case we have it going forward.
But if there's an issue with it that it's a hazard or something, please bring it to our attention, or I guess it is to our attention. Maybe we'll take a look at it and see.
It'll be fixed.
It'll be fixed.
All right, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Any other council comments this evening?
Mayor?
Councilwoman Hoderick.
Just had a couple community announcements. There is an April blood drive to supplement critically low blood supplies in the area. The City of Troy is sponsoring it, and it's on Thursday, April 24th from 9 a.m. to 8:45 p.m. at the Troy Community Center. You can call 248-524-1147 or see the redcrossblood.org website to sign up. The access code would be the word Troy. Walk-ins are also welcome, but you make sure you have a photo ID with you. Donors must be 17 and weigh more than 110 pounds and in good health to donate. And then secondly, one of the residents just mentioned some of the groups in the community that help out so much. Troy People Concerned is one of those, and they'll be hosting their spring pasta dinner on Thursday, April 24th from 5 to 8 p.m. at the San Marino Club. This is a great dinner out. It's $15 for adults, $5 per child under 10. It's a great cause. It's a lot of fun. If you're not familiar with Troy People Concerned, it's a service organization benefiting Troy residents in times of need, and make a plan to go out to dinner on April 24th. You can see how to get tickets at troypeopleconcerned.org, or just contact the city. Anyone here would be happy to refer anyone that's interested in more information.
Thank you. Any other council comments? Any comments or discussion on the reports this evening? No one has signed up for comments on items on or not on the agenda from members of the public outside of Troy. There is no study items or closed session this evening, so we are adjourned. Thank you.